All right, everybody, we are just chugging right along here. Our next speaker is going to be Filip Stachura, who's going to be the first keynote talk of the 2023 Shiny Conference. Really quickly, once again, we are all really happy to have you all here, and we're hoping you're enjoying yourselves. To anybody who doesn't know about Filip, Filip is the CEO and co-founder of Appsilon. He holds a dual degree in applied mathematics and computer science from the University of Warsaw. After graduating, he went on to work as a software engineer at Microsoft before returning to Poland to build Appsilon into what it is today with his fellow co-founders. Filip is also an author and contributor to a lot of our open source packages that Appsilon has developed. And he's really one of the people at our company that has like the 50,000 foot view over open source and how our company is going to grow to fit into this role. So today he's going to be giving his insights, transforming business with open source, insights from the pharmaceutical industry. Filip, I give the stage to you.
Thank you, Ian. What a great introduction. And the bar is set very high after the panel that we had. But hopefully you will find this presentation interesting. Hi, everyone. I'm Filip. I'm very happy we are here together today. Okay. All right. You can see already my slides. So my journey with open source started when I was 12 years old. A friend of mine visited me, and instead of taking with him a computer game, as usual, he took a Linux distribution called Slackware. And surprisingly, after over 2 decades, Slackware is still being maintained. I no longer use it. Although I use open source every day, a lot of open source. And I think open source is incredible. Let's for a moment imagine a world where restaurants collaborate to create and share recipes openly, allowing for more diverse and innovative dishes to be, and those dishes are offered across different establishments. The approach enables sharing of knowledge and techniques among chefs and among amateurs like us, leading to an overall improvement of quality and variety of food that we eat. This would completely change what we eat and how restaurants compete between each other. But this is not the world we live in. This month, after 10 years of building Appsilon, Financial Times recognized our team as one of the fastest growing companies in Europe. I visited the website and a huge data frame welcomed me. Sadly, there is no easy way to analyze this data or even to download it in any format. Well, I cannot say it's completely useless to put it online in this form because of open source. In less than 10 lines of code, I did it myself. I not only acquired the data, but I was also able to clean it up a little bit. Today, my story will be about open source. But to set the stage just right, we need to start from the beginning. And it begins with the software itself. Over 10 years ago, Mark Andreessen, famous entrepreneur and investor, and also co-author of some of the first internet web browsers, said, "Software is eating the world." But what does it even mean? Andreessen predicted a shift towards software companies taking over large parts of the economy. He expected many industries and businesses to be run on software and delivered as online services, causing software companies to invade and overturn established industries and players. Was his prediction correct? Well, we can use open source to check it as well. There are many ways to check it. Here I looked at the biggest companies through Forbes Global 2000 ranking. During this decade, we can observe a massive, unprecedented growth of the technology sector, both in terms of revenue and profit. This growth is much higher than the average. We can also see a decline of energy sector, including oil and gas, as well as declining retail sector, which for the first time had to compete with e-commerce platforms like Amazon or Shopify. Interestingly, the healthcare sector, including pharma, entered the top five sectors for the first time in 2021. Okay, so software is eating the world, but there is also another trend: open source. Open source is eating the software itself. In the Open Source Security and Risk Analysis Report 2023 from Synopsys, which is a Global 2000 company as well, we can examine the results of big analysis that they run across commercial code bases across 17 industries. According to the report, over 75% of code, commercial code, is open source. And only 4% of projects contain no open source component at all. Think about it. Only 1 in 25 commercial projects doesn't include open source. Open source is the future of software. Open source is the future of business. Open source is the future. The future is not only open source, but there's no future without it. During the early days of Appsilon, I shared something I had created for myself to improve one of our projects. I was inspired by our community and by role models who had created so much for all of us. I was unsure if anyone else would find it useful, but it turned out to be helpful to others, and our work became increasingly popular. As a result, our team got bigger, and since then, we were able to contribute much more. I'm very happy this happened, and that we are part of an amazing community of people and organizations. And this community is unique. It's more diverse than an average technological community, including people from various areas of business and science, people with different backgrounds, different domains and specialities. At Appsilon, we are able to get quite a unique perspective into how different sectors apply open source, because they all do apply open source. But we also see how far they are in their journey. Pharma is one of the industries that benefits a lot from the technologies we all love. And it's also an industry that is naturally important for all of us. It plays a crucial role in developing treatments and cures and promoting public health. Ironically, pharma is also an example of a sector where legacy closed technologies like SaaS or even spreadsheets were and still are heavily used. However, this industry is experiencing a rapid shift towards open source projects and collaborations, making it, in my opinion, a great domain for all of us to draw lessons from. What makes open source projects so successful in pharma? Why so many people are excited about it? Are there any patterns on trends we can observe and try to implement elsewhere? Let's answer some of these questions together. I will tell you about the things I am excited about and about the things I see. First of them is the fact that open source drives innovation. Or maybe it's the other way around. Open source makes it easier to experiment, and we can build more complex experiments cheaper and easier. Public institutions and nonprofits set new standards for us. Great example here is CERAT package by Satija Lab from New York City, which allows to perform complex single-cell genomics analytics in R. This innovation, created in academic institution, naturally flows in other directions, including commercial institutions and their research. And yes, their project uses Shiny as well. But innovation driven by open source is not only visible in academia. Another huge example here is work done by our consortium working group, which works to establish and improve R-based standards for R-based submissions to FDA. This working group has members of the biggest players in the industry. Think organizations like J&J, Roche, Merck, Pfizer, and many, many others. They openly collaborate to improve practices and set standards for everyone. And they succeed. On Friday, we will have a talk from Eric Nance about Shiny application submission to FDA. If you're interested in learning more, be sure to see that one. I already gave you 2 examples on my previous slide, but here's another one. This application is related to pharmacokinetics. It is a study of how our bodies process the drug after we take it. It involves the absorption, distribution, metabolism, and elimination of a drug in the body. All process in this particular organization was heavily Excel-based. It required a lot of manual work, emails, copy-pasting, and sadly, also a lot of human errors. This spreadsheets and all process was completely replaced by a single Shiny application. Existing packages already contain the majority of functionalities required for this app. There is no need to implement modeling, simulations, data validation. Reports that are generated are reproducible and are a direct match with what is seen in the app, which was very important for GXP compliance. It's incredible that through use of open source, R, and Shiny, something that was just an idea, it's possible to create something that is used for serious science by a big group of people, which is GXP compliant in a matter of several months. It's incredible how easy it is to change and innovate when only there is willingness to change. I can imagine an organization that decides to give up, that they don't want to innovate, it's not worth the effort. One day they will just go out of business. But I cannot imagine an organization or person who wants to embrace innovation without open source. Let's move to the next thing. The other thing that makes open source so successful is just how popular it already is. I don't think this is something we should take for granted. And if we don't take it for granted, then for a moment, we can actually appreciate it as much as we should. Open source is a unique approach that is unlikely to be replicated in other industries, like the food services example that I gave you. It's hard to imagine open source would grow as much without pioneers like Richard Stallman and Linus Torvalds, who set the foundation by developing the GNU operating system and the Linux kernel. Since then, countless developers have contributed to countless projects. Today, we use open source in everything, from our smartphones to cloud. Here you can see a fraction of the dependencies diagram for Shiny Blueprint, which is our new open source release that got on CRAN today. And Shiny Blueprint allows you to make Shiny apps to look like something created by Palantir. Palantir shared their Blueprint UI framework. It's based on React, and it allows you to create complex applications processing data that still look amazing and great. Later today, I will recommend a talk about Rhinoverse, where you will be able to learn more about Shiny Blueprint. The growth of open source over the past decades has been truly remarkable. The fact that all of this software is available to everyone for free is a testament to the power of collaboration. Open source truly represents the best of what tech industry has to offer. We build on top of the work of the others. We innovate on different levels of abstraction. Millions of developers and thousands of organizations contribute hundreds and thousands of hours, and they share their work for free. If you don't use open source, it's basically like telling you don't need these thousands of hours to get ahead. Smart organizations and smart teams, they recognize risks related to open source. But they also understand that they cannot afford to not use this massive advantage already created. And this is how you make the world build together with you. I also see people choose open source because they prefer to remain in full control. They want to keep their ability to make changes, to customize their work however they like. This is a slide that I shared during UseR conference in Toulouse, in France, 4 years ago. Not much has really changed since then. I advocated how Shiny is different from the other technologies and what we can learn from each other to improve the way we work. If you look at the bottom of this diagram, you will see business intelligence, which is a very good example of something you cannot fully control. If you pick Shiny or other web development solution, you can fully customize the way it looks, to what services and databases you want to connect and how. And it's easy to collect logs and data analytics. In theory, you can imagine various projects created in SaaS, in pharma context. And SaaS is already very popular in pharma, especially in clinical trials. But SaaS lacks ecosystems that R or Python already have. If you need to work on things like dynamic pricing for sales optimization, complex supply chain management, or custom reporting, you will pick R or Python because you have full control and components from which you can actually build this quickly. So SaaS is a limited option as well. So what options are left? When people don't have an ability to customize and they want to remain in full control, they stick to manual work. But manual work is problematic as well. It takes a lot of time and always leads to human error, sooner or later. In this project, we were transforming the way how compliance reports are created. One of them was taking 8 weeks to prepare and should be prepared once per year. The other one was taking just 4 hours to prepare, but had to be created much more often. And organization was experiencing financial losses when errors were present in it. By introducing Shiny, this process was changed completely. First of all, you can access this data anytime you want and see current data directly from databases and through API calls. You don't need any manual work to create charts and generate reports, and you can easily export them to different formats like PDF and Microsoft Office. You need a language like R or Python with a rich ecosystem where you don't need to reinvent the wheel for tasks like generating a PDF, parsing custom data format, or building a web app. It's all there. And you don't want to do it manually anymore. It's super time consuming and error prone. You get an automated process that makes reports which are exactly like those done manually. Although this project may sound simple, it saved millions of dollars and saved a lot of time, improved teams' morale, and reduced inventory issues. This app was so successful, it was further deployed to other sites, which further improved the return on investment. And to get a sense how such applications look, here you can see an app from life sciences as well. This app is a public app. Our team created this together with a team from Johns Hopkins University. The customization capabilities of Shiny allow for the creation of applications that are difficult for people to believe were made using Shiny. And you need an option to fully customize if you want to create things like this. There are two other trends that are related to collaboration. First, open source is the area that naturally invites collaboration. It's easier to collaborate on a project related to R than on a project related to Shiny, to SaaS. It's easier to collaborate on a project related to R than on project related to SaaS. As a result, collaboration happens in open source technologies, and it makes them transparent and available for everyone. An excellent example of such collaboration is Pharmaverse, where companies like J&J, Roche, GSK, and many others collaborate together to create a group of compatible packages for end-to-end clinical reporting. We will have a talk introducing Teal, a package from Pharmaverse from its developers, Paweł Rudzki and Donny Unardi, tomorrow. Teal is, in my opinion, one of the absolute success stories. It was first built internally by Roche and now is a fully open source project. Teal is equipped with features to elevate the user's exploratory experience. You have stuff like data filtering, code reproducibility, logging, report generation, things that are important and things that are similar every time. You don't need to worry about that. Instead, you can focus on the things that are unique to this particular project and analysis. It is compatible with CDISC data, commonly used for clinical trials. It can be data from multi-omics experiments. Actually, it can be any data you want because you can implement your custom data format if you need to. Teal allows you to plug and play modules that are already created or to create your own module. It makes it super easy to filter data sets you're working with and following typical processes like survival plots or outlier detection. This is simplified and standardized. This makes applications easier to follow, easier to create. And of course, improvements to one module that you have will benefit all applications you have that use this module. If you want to learn more about Teal and Pharmaverse, join the talk by Piotr and Dani tomorrow. If you are a big pharmaceutical company, do you want to compete alone with a group of industry leaders redefining the future without you? Or maybe you will just follow their lead without any influence of your own and become less and less relevant. Or perhaps you will join, participate, and contribute because your collaboration benefits everyone. You, your industry, and everyone else. The final observation I want to share is that embracing open source makes it possible and easier to hire the best people out there. Many of the best engineers and scientists I know are able to pick their workplace, and very often they don't look at their compensation as an individual factor. People want to work on things that not only bring them money, but also meaning. Many of them value also the fact that open source work is by definition open. The work is available for everyone today and in the future, even after they supposedly change their workplace one day. The whole world can see your work, collaborate with you, contribute. You are closer to your community and your users. And for many folks out there, this is very exciting. Embracing open source is still gives an ability to differentiate as an employer and hire amazing people. One of the ways we use in hiring at Appsilon is to look for people who are excited by the things we are excited about. Here you can see an example of our Shiny app that uses our Shiny Fluent package, which allows you to create Shiny apps to look like Microsoft Office. When we create something like this and we share this with the community, we go through GitHub and we check people who are excited by this as well. People that will join your team tomorrow are among those who add GitHub stars to your repositories today. Organizations that will embrace open source will hire people who are able to adapt and learn faster because they already like to work in a very dynamic environment. Organizations that hire people who are able to adapt and learn will be better positioned to face big changes ahead that already started to happen, redefining the way we all work. If you are interested in the future of work, make sure to join. This conversation already started in this during this conference, but we will have roundtable discussion about ChatGPT and large language models in general and their intersection with Shiny. Make sure to join this panel if you want to learn more. You can, of course, also talk to our CTO and head of AI on ShinyCon Slack. They will be very happy to talk to you about it. And for those who don't know yet, yes, we have a dedicated ShinyCon Slack. Okay, so I share with you why I believe open source and Shiny deliver. It's a unique piece of technology that empowered thousands of people who are not web developers to create web applications. It's used by administration, NGOs, businesses. It's used for internal and external work. Applications created in Shiny are being mentioned in the international press, and they receive significant traffic. But developing more and more creative and mighty apps require constant learning. And not only that, it also requires getting your approach to development right. We've seen teams building for months without any impact. Their apps getting bigger and bigger, slower and slower, and harder to maintain every day. If you want to learn about fast prototyping, to verify what's worth launching and what doesn't, I would consider this talk by Jacqueline Knowles. Not every idea can be as impactful as we hoped for, and some of the apps are just experiments. And also this talk by Ania Skrzydło, how to build user-centric applications. If users are not excited about your app, if you don't get any adoption, you will have no impact. So talking to users is extremely important. Nobody wants to use an ugly or slow app. If you want to expand your knowledge about building apps with great user interfaces and great user experience, consider talks by John and Ashley, both on Thursday. And if Shiny for Python is something you are excited about, or maybe just interested in, talk from Pavel on Friday, who was part of the team porting Shiny Semantic from R to Shiny Semantic for Python, is something I would look into. And building and maintaining successful Shiny apps is about great engineering. You have to manage complexity. You need to take care of performance, security. Kamil and Kuba will talk about all that during Rhino and Rhinoverse talk. And Colin will speak about building production software tomorrow. That being said, we have an amazing lineup this year for this conference. All the talks during ShinyConf are recorded. I invite you to attend or watch all of them. By investing your time to learn and to set the right mindset, by thinking about impact you want to make, great user interface and experience, great engineering, you will be able to develop more creative and mighty apps, which will be successful, and Shiny will continue to deliver. If you don't contribute to open source today, you can quickly change that. It could be a small bug fix. It might be a unit test, documentation improvement, or perhaps just sharing something you already did. Your participation will boost innovation, collaboration. It will showcase possibilities. It will strengthen the community, or maybe even change with who you work. You can also discuss with your team how you use open source and whatever you can share anything as a group. if you already contribute to open source, that's wonderful. Thank you. Together, we're building a world in which restaurants are publicly sharing their recipes. The only difference is we're not restaurants. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer a few questions. So yeah, what would you like to know more about?
All right, Philip, thank you so much. What a great presentation. So for anybody out there who has a question, please feel free to put it in the comments. I don't think we really got very many so far, but we have a couple good questions coming from the internal team. And at the core of this, Philip, I think that we talk about pharma. You say the word SaaS. Like these things are just so deeply ingrained in these companies, and they're paying so much money, on the order of millions of dollars per year for a license. So, given that, a lot of these companies have this existing infrastructure, what would you say would be a recommendation to somebody in an organization like this if they want to start migrating legacy code and start really pushing this in their organization?
Thanks, Jan. This is a good question. So there is an existing. So there are many ways to do it, I think. For sure, organizations that are just starting up, it's similar in finance. If you need to create a new bank, you don't use COBOL. If you have an old bank with legacy code, you have a problem. So, one of the things they can do is just to invest into new projects and maybe spin off new companies, and kind of like eat their own business one day. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it might be actually to experiment with completely new approach, like maybe support of things like GitHub Copilot or large language models will speed this up. Of course, human has to be in the loop to actually control this whole thing, but it might be a way to do it radically cheaper. Another thing that I would do is just to identify the project with the highest ROI. So you really need to build a business case. Not every legacy code needs to be ported today, but some of them are so hard to maintain that it's very expensive as well. So, if you are able to reduce those costs, I think you will get, if you port them to other more modern framework or technology, is a saving.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Philip. So maybe this is a softball question, and I think I know the answer to this, but I don't want to presume. Philip, what do you think of all the amazing open source contributions that Appsilon has made? What do you think is our most valuable contribution, and why? And feel free to take a look. This is a big question.
So it's, I think, Shiny React and Rhino, but I'm very also excited about the fact we organized ShinyConf, and I think in part this is kind of like open source contribution as well.
I would agree.
I'm super excited about this conference, about how great speakers we are able to get here, and about the whole community involvement and discussions that we have. So it might be that as well.
Okay, great answer. Maybe this is another high level question, but not even just Appsilon's open source contributions, but if you could put some metric on one of these types of contributions, and like how do you measure success? And I realize that's maybe a vague question, but I thought I would ask it.
You mean in general or our?
In general, in the pharma industry.
So I think it's very hard because we don't have any insights into how those packages are used internally. Like this is something we collaborate openly on, but we don't necessarily share how big impact they do have. The thing I am excited about is for sure this our consortium working group that works on Shiny and R-based submissions to FDA. I think this can be really a game changer. That process that historically was heavily based on SaaS is going to be ported, or kind of like is going to mature to an open framework how to do it, and this will perhaps also empower smaller teams and smaller organizations to do it more cheaply and efficiently.
Okay, thank you for that. So we had a question that just came in from One Track, and just to say it at a high level, we have people coming to us at Appsilon every day, basically with their main complaint being we have a Tableau or a Power BI license, and we hit this limitation, and we cannot go any further. So you kind of mentioned these technologies in your talk, and one was asking if you can go a little bit into deeper detail about what differentiates Shiny from Tableau, Power BI, any other software like that, perhaps for anybody in the audience who may be new to Shiny.
So for me, there are three main differentiators. The first one is what I already said. So ability to fully customize. If you have a dashboard in Power BI, as far as I know, and I did check some time ago, but I think that it's still the case. There's no way to plug in, for example, stuff like Google Analytics or any other analytics data platform to check how your users interact with your dashboard. If you want to have this level of insights, Shiny will help you, BI will not. The other thing that I think is completely different is the fact that Shiny, most often, the most powerful Shiny apps allow user also to make decisions, to write something to database. Shiny apps are not read-only. BI is read-only. So if you want actually to empower people to do something about the data, to make decisions, to clean it up, whatever you need to do, you won't be able to do it in BI, and you are able to do it in Shiny. So this is a real application. It's not just a view on your data. So that's the second thing. And third is so I am a software engineer, and my preference is to have everything in source code repository, ability to have code reviews, to collaborate, to have this written down, not somewhere. Even if in BI you can embed your R code, this is somewhere there, and it's very hard to do stuff like code review, tests, verify logic, and so on. So BI is great for some of the use cases. If you want to create something very quickly, I use BI to check some stuff that we have in Appsilon. For some use cases, you should use it, but for the powerful apps, it will not help you.
Okay, great answer, Philip. Another very general question, but to anybody out there who thinks they maybe have some code and they want to contribute to open source, what would be your recommendation to them? And in general, what's the best way to start writing your own open source code?
I think that you need to know your strength, and first think about the things that you can contribute. I think I already mentioned some examples. So it might be as easy as improving documentation. It might be as easy as going through tests, fixing tests, improving code coverage. It might be if you have something, maybe you have a package that you created on your own. Maybe try to submit this on CRAN. maybe improve first documentation and test and then submit or run. But there maybe another way to actually contribute is to maybe write blog posts about some of the open source packages you are excited about. So there are so many ways to contribute. I think the most important aspect is to actually do anything and not be afraid. Just show up and contribute. And with time, you will find what you are excited about, what you like, and what also gets attention of other people.
Okay, another excellent answer, Philip. And you just said it, but I'll reiterate. If you're out there and you feel like, oh, I don't have the most amazing code that's about to change the world, but maybe you did look into the code and you found some insight. Maybe that's a blog article. Maybe that's a little documentation. Maybe that's just sharing with people, on LinkedIn or Twitter that you found this out. But yeah, maybe to wrap us up here, this is totally unfair to the Appsilon engineering team that just put in all this work on Shiny Blueprint, which we're so happy lined up with the conference. So here's the unfair question: what's next for Appsilon open source?
I don't know yet. Like we have many plans, but what's gonna be first? It's hard to tell. Like we want to release stuff we are proud about. We also from time to time share some experiments we work on. A lot of exciting things happening right now. For sure, we will look into WebR. For sure, we are experimenting a lot with large language models. So a lot of stuff can happen. I just don't know what's gonna be first.
All right. Yeah, sure. Damien in the chat, he has an answer. So Philip, one of the big things that has happened in the last year is obviously Shiny for Python. And we're very lucky to have Winston to come in and talk with us on Friday about this. From my perception, the pharmaceutical industry is changing. The doors of perception, to quote Phil Bauscher from Fuse last year, have been opened, and people are starting to see this. Do you have an opinion on whether or not Python is going to take a place in this new open space that is emerging in these pharmaceutical teams, or do you think that R is really the language that shines and will take this forward?
I think both of them have their place. Like the advantage that R has with bioconductor is like this is far ahead, and also when we look at the FDA submissions, we are discussing R-based FDA submissions, not Python-based FDA submissions.
Sure.
So here there is this massive advantage. On the other side, Python is better for certain types of work. So, for example, if you work on computer vision, if you maybe work on stuff related to oncology, medical images, and all those things, might be that Python is just a better fit. And I think there is a space for both of these technologies. Like they don't have to compete. We just need to find a way and identify use cases that are best for R and best for Python, and also work on, but this actually works pretty good right now, of how to create projects that use both.
Okay, wonderful answer, Philip.
Maybe to add that, sorry, Ian, but I think it's important. Like when we have a project where we use, at least in Appsilon, when we have a project where we use R and JS, JavaScript, or Python and JavaScript, this is standard. Of course, if we can avoid JavaScript and use just one language, perfect. But sometimes, if you want to build truly powerful apps, you need two languages. And I think we shouldn't be afraid of mixing R and Python in the same sense. Like if you need both, if it makes sense to use both, use both.
Okay, fantastic answer, Philip. And thank you so much for your entire presentation, for your insights today.